and welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. Before we get started, please make sure you subscribe to the show on your podcatcher of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to give the show 5 stars and a 1 to 2 sentence review, and tell me what you think. If you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can do so on Instagram at Cult Cinema Circle, or on Twitter at Cult Cinecircle, or you can send me an email at cultcinemacircle@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at Jesse Kremp, JESSEKREMP, all one word, and all social media links will be put in the show notes. Now on with the show, and welcome back to the show, y'all. So today we're going to go over what I watched in the month of August. So I actually watched a couple different things this month based off of the recommendations of some people I've been talking to, which is super fun and nice. But yeah, so we have some stuff coming up for next month, of course. You'll see all about that in just a little bit. I post every beginning of the month of what I'm going to be covering, so I'm keeping up that tradition, if anything. But yeah, I watched a couple different things, and if you hear anything in the background, I'm currently washing my comforter, because sometimes I do that. And also, I come to you with a new haircut. However, you can't see it because this is not a visual medium. So I thought I would just tell you that. Why not? But let's get started with what I've been watching, or what I have watched in this month. So the first thing I watched this month was actually from 2002. It's called 1 Hour Photo. It was on Criterion Channel as part of their Photographer's Gaze collection. So it had like Pecker from John Waters, Eyes of Laura Mars, this film, a couple different ones, all kind of focused on stories of photographers. Now, this is something I'd always been kind of aware of. So the plot of this is pretty much we follow Cy, the photo guy, as his mental state pretty much slowly but surely begins to unravel. And we discover that he develops an unhealthy obsession with a local family. It's pretty much that. I would say, the attraction to this movie, in my opinion, is the idea of a sociopathic photo lab tech is hard to pass up. What can I say? I generally liked this. The theme of this is really exploring the idea of what if somebody that you think is perfectly harmless turns out to be a thing but. And for a film from 2002, it shows how loneliness, can really affect somebody. And it just shows that in an interesting way, which I thought was cool. The acting of this, is all Robin Williams' movie, really. I think Michael Vartan's in there as well. And those are like kind of the big folks of that. But yeah, he just does such a good job. And if anything, it's really a character study of how a damaged person can just like turn at the drop of a hat. Because he really is just a lonely man. I ended up giving this a 3.5 and a little heart, by the way. But yeah, the dialogue of this, Cy does most of the heavy lifting in this. His voiceovers are very chilling and void of any emotion. So it just kind of shows the psychopathy that's on, display here. And I thought the cinematography was pretty good. There were a lot of vibrant colors throughout this. I really like the sterile feeling of this, like definitely how they make the place where he works, the Save-A-Mart or whatever. They make that feel very corporatized and very sanitized, if you will. So I thought that was really interesting. And the pace of this was pretty good. I don't think it overstayed its welcome, really. There's definitely social cringe in it. So if you don't like that kind of stuff, or if you're averse to that, then that's fine. But that's kind of the point in my opinion, like it's supposed to be like that. I don't think the soundtrack really stood out to me in this film either, though, and I thought the directing of this was pretty good. It felt very clinical and sterile at points, by design, really, and it seemed to just I think probably what this director wanted was that he wanted to kind of show this character study, and I liked it, so I thought it was good. It's a thriller that uses the lens of a film camera to peer into the life of a lonely man. It was really eerie to watch, and having Robin Williams, who is so known for being a comedian, playing a really solid villain, was just chef's kiss. So give it a watch if you want. It's still on Criterion Channel, I think, or even if it's not, I think this is even worth a rental if you're at all interested in like a thriller or anything like that. But yeah, the next thing I watched was actually a rewatch for me. And this is from 1983, and I decided to watch Valley Girl on Hoopla. So this movie is about, picture it, it's 1980s Los Angeles. A girl in the San Fernando Valley meets a punk rock dude from Hollywood. They fall in love. Her preppy Valley friends don't like him because he's so different. And the boy and girl break up, but once they come to their senses at the prom, they end up driving off to a happy ending. There's also a weird subplot where a teenage girl and her stepmom are also vying for like the same guy. It's a really odd subplot and it doesn't really need to be there. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. You have, I believe, Julie is her name, played by Deborah Foreman, and then you have Randy, who is Nicolas Cage. Yeah, so this is Romeo and Juliet pretty much, but it's set in 1980s era Los Angeles. And what I also kind of love too is that this is really about, it's a bit of a different thing, because I think when we talk about Romeo and Juliet type of stories or adaptations, it's very much like this sort of like, he's from this or she's from that and whatever. When really Romeo and Juliet is really just about two wealthy families that are just hate each other, and are trying to get power, and that's why they hate each other. Whereas this, it kind of subverts that a little bit, because Randy is definitely like not as well off. Perhaps we don't ever see his family, we don't ever see any of his home life, as opposed to we see plenty of Julie's and kind of her upbringing and kind of where she lives. So I thought that was really interesting. But since this is a Romeo and Juliet movie, there's the theme of like forbidden love here. It's an interesting take on that, because like I said, Julie is totally from money, Randy isn't. So I like the subversion of that, and the opposites attract is definitely strong with this one. The acting of this, I really loved all the acting in it. Deborah Foreman and Nicolas Cage are really good leads in this film. I like those actors quite a bit. I also enjoy, I do like a good screaming Nicolas Cage, and Deborah Foreman's actually also very good in April Fool's Day as well. And I'm a kind of I'm not a stan of hers, but like I do love an Elizabeth Daily role. I mean, she's Dottie in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She's a voiceover actor. She's Tommy Pickles, Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls, all these different things. So, I mean, I just love seeing her during her live action era that she had in the early 80s. But yeah, the dialogue of this is a little bit part of the weaker parts of this movie, in my opinion. But really, at the end of the day, it's just Romeo and Juliet, honestly. So I'll cut it some slack there, but it's not like we're, writing any sort of Oscar winning or Pulitzer Prize winning things here. You know what I mean? The cinematography of this, I would probably need to see it in 4K or something like that to really appreciate this more. But I think this has the possibility to be very colorful and vibrant. And some of my favorite shots that are in here are them just driving in Hollywood. So please, if anybody out there has watched Valley Girl and they have like the 4K of it, tell me how it is. Like, show me some screenshots maybe. I don't know. That'd be cool. The editing doesn't really stand out for me or anything like that. It's pretty cut and dry, honestly. Not too bad. The soundtrack is really, really good in this movie. There's a few bangers of this. I mean, they have I Also Up the World in here before it became like a big song, which is really interesting. My favorite song of this movie is Josie Cotton's Johnny, Are You Queer? It's so good. Go look it up. It's fantastic. The directing of this, I think Martha Coolidge, who's the director, female director, does a really good job at directing this film. I think there's a level of sensitivity that is brought to these characters, and I think the story was just very well handled. And yeah, I think it's a good time. And I think just also having this be one of the lead roles for Nick Cage is a big selling point of the movie, where people could be like, oh wait, like he wasn't always just screaming with his big teeth or whatever. And I think this movie does set itself apart with the fun soundtrack it has, the 80s cheese that's just collected throughout. And also this would go on to really kind of show what teen movies could be, because it's kind of before you have like John Hughes and these different kind of tent poles that were really kind of building the teen genre as a whole, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, I gave this like a 3.5 a little heart. I've watched it before and I really like it. I don't own it or anything, but I probably would though. I will say I was watching all of the other Friday the 13th movies. I think I mentioned last month that I was watching those. So I'm going to let you, I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I do have an episode coming up about all of the movies. So I'll let you find out what my readings are from there. But I did watch Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, Part 6, Jason Lives, Part 7, The New Blood, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And then I ended up watching Freddy vs. Jason and also Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. I watched Jason X, and then I also watched Friday the 13th, 2009. So again, I'm going to save off of what my opinions are here because I do have a podcast episode coming up on Friday the 13th, actually. So please go check that out when it drops. I'm actually still having to edit that one, but it'll be fine. But yes, so yeah, or you can check out my letterbox to see what I say about them. I don't say anything that crazy about them, so you can see my little ratings there. I also have a little list on there for ranking as well, so there's that. But I decided, I was watching horror movies already, so why not just keep the horror going? I decided to watch Melancholia from 2011 this month because shout out Rocco T. Thompson. Hey, we've been talking back and forth for a little bit. Be sure to check out when Rocco's on the feed. He will be on here at some point. We're going to do probably an episode this year, so that'll be really fun. And go check out the Lady Killers pod as well, where he's one of the co-hosts. They're fantastic. I've been listening to them quite a bit. But anyway, but he is a Lars von Trier fan, and I don't know if I am. So anyway, I decided to watch these though because I have been meaning to kind of watch them. I did watch another Lars von Trier movie as well. You'll see that. But yeah, so this movie, Melancholia, it has good old Kirsten Dunst in it. It has Charlotte Gainsbourg, who's kind of a notable Lars von Trier actress. One of the Skarsgårds is in it. All different sorts of people. Brady Corbett's in it for like a minute. I was like, oh, wait, okay. But yeah, so this one is about these, it's a tale of two sisters and their respective descents into bouts of extreme depression and anxiety. Kirsten Dunst's character is very, very depressed, and then Charlotte Gainsborough's character is very anxious. We also find that a rogue planet is heading towards Earth for collision, and by the end of the film, we discover that at the end of the world, you can either freak the fuck out or you can give absolutely zero fucks. So that's pretty much my plot. But this is a film from the famed and also maligned Depressed Boy director himself, Lars von Trier. This has also been touted as being a breakthrough role for Kirsten Dunst, especially in dramatics, because a lot of what she had done before, of course, was like the Spider-Man movies, and then also doing like Teen Fair as well. And I think also this has like kind of a distinction for being a very viscerally accurate portrayal of what depression looks like. And I will definitely say I do agree with that. I think Kirsten Dunst is like amazing in this. The major theme of this is really how depression is so real and how family dysfunction doesn't help with it. This movie, like Lars von Trier's other movies, is very nihilistic. It's very depressing in a way as a whole. So it's not surprising that people who maybe are battling with depression or who may have recovered from serious bouts of depression can really connect with this film in some way. And again, proceed with caution, if anything. I gave this a 3.5 and a heart because I really did kind of enjoy it if I could. I think in a way this is kind of one of Lars von Trier's more accessible movies. Maybe it's because Kirsten Dunst is there, but I also just think like we all feel a little sad sometimes. We all feel a little depressed at times. And if you're interested in wanting to watch a movie where the fucking world ends at the end, then have at it. But yeah, but all the actors in this are doing such a good job. I think Kirsten Dunst especially, it's a crime that she didn't even get a nomination for this because I thought she did so good. And I mean, she is just somebody who I think obviously is famous, but I would love for her to actually win a fucking Oscar because I think she's awesome. Like, she's so good. The dialogue of this, it's written by Lars von Trier. He writes and directs pretty much all of his movies. So it's going to be a little heady for those. And then also, I think the actors and actresses, though, do a good job with the script here. But of course, a lot of this can get into that he's very much about like metaphor and all this kind of stuff. So, a lot of his films to me are ones where, shout out Spooky Rice. He does like disturbing breakdowns of different disturbing films. He's done quite a few Lars von Trier movies because they're all disturbing movies. But it always feels like you have to watch a fucking video after some of these, which is understandable. The editing of this is fine. He also edits a lot of his movies, Lars von Trier, so he's known for kind of editing down his content. But I think Stensgaard, he doesn't edit his movies. This person, Stensgaard, I think it's a woman, does a good job with what she's given. Who knows? Maybe he does edit some of his movies. He's very involved with a lot of that. This is pretty much all classical music as well. It's definitely a vibe. It works for the film though, in my opinion. So I thought the soundtrack was actually pretty good, but it's not like you have like needle drops or anything like that. So there's that. Directing though, I mean, Lars von Trier in general is divisive as well. But I think he did a good job with directing this film. He has firsthand experience with having had a severe bout of depression. So it makes sense that he was able to really connect with this and be able to bring it to screen. So even though he is divisive, and I don't know what maybe it's because he's Dutch or whatever, or he's Danish or whatever, like, you know, maybe he doesn't know how to say things the best, where he doesn't just sound like, what the hell did you just say, dude? But like, you know, he's divisive in general, but I think this is a very accessible film in my opinion. This stands out beyond a lot of other Lars von Trier movies because I have seen at least Antichrist I saw before, but this seems like the most palatable for people of a major audience though. Is it depressing? Yes, but I think it's showing two sides of a similar coin. I think it's a well done film overall, and I would say, like, you know, if you at all wonder what a Lars von Trier movie kind of is, like, I think you should check this one out, because even if you never not watch another one of his again, you'll get the vibe from this one, in my opinion. So yeah, there's that. But I decided to lighten the mood a little bit, and I decided to watch a little film called Mermaids from 1990. This has Cher in it, Winona Ryder, and then a little Christina Ricci. I watched this actually because Cultworthy Studios, sorry. Antonio is actually, he did an episode of this on his other podcast, I think, where they talk about Siskel and Ebert reviews or something. But anyway, I was like, oh, they did a little episode on it, and I'm meaning to watch this, so I decided why not. So this follows Rachel Flax, played by Cher, and her two daughters, Charlotte, played by Winona Ryder, and Kate, played by Christina Ricci. They move from town to town whenever a romantic relationship that Rachel tries to cultivate goes south, and we follow this charming group of ladies through their move to Massachusetts. So in this situation, I think this is a really good coming of age story. I ended up giving it 4 and a little heart. I think for all the characters involved in this, it has its dramatic moments, but ultimately I really liked watching this family. I love that, you know, this is all about really Charlotte's story and how she falls in love with Jake Ryan from 16 Candles. But I also just like how it is her coming of age story, but in a way it's also a coming of age story for Rachel, for Cher's character, which I liked. This really touches on the bonds of sisterhood and just motherhood, and being that I am not a woman myself, I do have a mother and I have a sister, but I really think just being kind of even a spectator of that, I think it really touches on the bonds of this, and I like that there is a strong-willed single mother at the helm of this movie, and I just always will really appreciate that because I myself am a product of a single mother, so I always really respect that kind of a thing. I think the acting in this, all three of the actresses in this, Cher, Winona Ryder, and Christina Ricci, all shine in this. I absolutely buy them as a family unit, and I also really loved Bob Hoskins' character as well. He's the one who's trying to pretty much have a relationship with Cher, and you know, I do like that. The dialogue of this, so there is quite a bit of voiceover done by Charlotte in this movie. The script though isn't terrible. I did generally believe some of the moments in here, but I will say if you're not always the biggest fan of like voiceover, there is quite a bit of it in here if it takes you out at all. I do like the cinematography of this film. I think it's a pretty good film to look at, and I think the setting that they're shooting in lends itself to just looking nice. I think they did shoot this on location in like Massachusetts or whatever, so it feels like a small town, and I really do like that. I thought the editing was also done very well as well. There is some really good oldies music in this used throughout. It's a period piece in the 60s, so that's just a given, and a lot of the times with something like Dirty Dancing or even this movie or other movies of its ilk that are period pieces, especially in the 60s, I think they always have some good oldies. And I love the little cover of the Shoop Shoop song that plays over the end credits that's done by Cher, and also the little music video with Winona and Christina in there. I thought that was really cute. I think Richard Benjamin, who's the director of this film, did a really good job at directing the movie. I completely buy the world of this film and the situations that are presented, and I think this feels to me, even though it is based off of a book, it feels wholly original. It's showing a strong-willed single mother at a time where that wasn't always the biggest thing, and it could be seen with some side eye, if you will. And I think, just like I said, as a spectator of somebody who has lived with a mom and a daughter before, I think this captures mother-daughter relationships very well, and I think that's why people come back to it as kind of a comfort movie for them. And I really do think that if at all, you are a woman who has, obviously a mother figure or something, or you're at all interested in those kinds of movies that kind of follow those, I think this is definitely worth your while. The next thing I watched after this was actually, because Pickens has been telling me to watch it forever, is The Prowler from 1981. So this is about a gaggle of young college students who are getting picked off one by one by a soldier with a sharp blade and a chip on his shoulder. So I gave this a 3. This is definitely a watch for anybody who's an 80s slasher fan, anybody who likes blood and gore, because this is early Tom Savini work. This is right after he did Friday the 13th. So this is like his job. He pretty much did sort of after The Burning, I think. He ended up doing this afterwards. But yeah, I don't really know what the theme of this movie was supposed to be, or like what themes we're getting at, except maybe just beware of masked soldiers, I guess. And I will say that I don't think the acting was all that good in this movie, but that's kind of what we're not coming to a slasher film for, top-notch acting necessarily. But yeah, I mean, this definitely, if anything, feels a little bit better than some of those other kind of independent horror movies that were coming out at the time like that. I think the script is not all that well done, really, but it's not really something I'm looking for when I'm watching a slasher movie. But yeah, and some of the editing also could have been better. The scene where the young police officer is calling for the main sheriff at this hotel he's staying at is kind of hard to sit through, because I think it could have just been edited down a little bit more. I don't really mind the cinematography of this movie, though. I think it's definitely atmospheric, and the kills are nicely highlighted. And again, the special effects were done very well. And when I talk about the soundtrack, you could have fooled me, because I don't even remember there being a soundtrack. But one of the things is this movie was actually directed by Joseph Zito, who would end up doing Friday the 13th Final Chapter, which is part 4. He does a good job at directing this movie. I think he improves upon it when he's doing the final chapter in Friday the 13th, which is just cool to me. In my opinion, though, this isn't a major standout when it comes to 80s slashers necessarily, but I do think the special effects are really what make this kind of a watchable movie. Otherwise, this would be really unbearable to watch. But because of the effects in it, I really do think it's worth at least a watch for those who might be interested in that kind of thing. And then I just did an episode on this, but I ended up watching Rock and Roll High School from 1979. So this follows Riff Randall, played by PJ Soles, and her friend Kate. They're navigating high school with a new tyrannical principal, Mrs. Togar. Riff is also in love with the music of the Ramones, and this whole movie is a cheesy but good time. I think if you're a fan of high school movies or of early punk rock a little bit, you should definitely watch this. It's a Roger Corman produced classic. On its surface, I don't think this movie is super deep by any means. I do love that this movie explores the idea of just teen rebellion in a way that I think is really, really accessible, and this is definitely kind of a predecessor of different teen movies that would then end up coming, after it. This is also somebody who, a main character who isn't just in love with a member of the Ramones and is like googly eyes for him, but also is just more so in love with the music and just the idea of wanting to start her life and be a songwriter, because that's what she wants the most. And that's why Riff Randall, in my opinion, just kicks a lot of ass. And I think PJ Soles does a really good job in the role. Mary Warnov and Paul Bartel. Mary plays the principal, Mrs. Togar. Paul Bartel plays the music teacher. They're both fantastic as well. They were an acting duo back in the day. And even Clint Howard, who plays Eaglebauer, I think he does a really good job as kind of the master of chaos in this. And that being said, the Ramones suck at acting though, but that's okay. It's the movie's not about them, which is fine with me. The script isn't really anything to write home about either. However, this is an early Joe Dante script, so I think it just gets the point across just fine. All you really need to know is that Riff Randall is a rock and roller, and she wants to, go to a Ramones concert. She wants to write for them, and she wants to, just fucking rock out. It's awesome. That's what it is. I think the setting of this film is really good. It's definitely shot in LA, but it kind of feels like Anywhere USA in a way. The shots of this film are really, really good. It's no wonder that Dean Cundey would end up having this kind of prolific career as a cinematographer after, though. I also do like the costumes of this as well. I like that this all feels like the late 70s, obviously because it was shot then, but I do enjoy that. I think the editing of this was paced pretty well too. It doesn't take up too much of your time, and I do also like that there's effects by Rob Bottin, who's the same guy who did the special effects for John Carpenter's The Thing. It just adds to the surreal nature of this movie because it is a little surreal. There are some good bangers on this soundtrack, in my opinion. I think anybody who's interested in rock and roll, or anybody who might be interested in this kind of late 70s, early 80s like punk scene, to check out the Ramones, check out Rock and Roll High School as like a soundtrack. I think it's worth your while. And then I think Alan Arkish, who's the director, did a really good job with directing this, and it's nice to see that he went on to have a good TV directing career. And if you want to hear more of what I thought as well, you can listen to my episode I just did on this. But this is one of the better movies made around a band, that I would say, and I think it's worth a watch for anybody who might be interested in watching other Roger Corman movies, or who just wants to check out like this kind of kick-ass feminist character. I just think this is definitely worth your while, especially if you've never seen it before. Then the next thing I watched, I kept on my trek of Lars von Trier movies, and I decided to pull up to Canopy, where I was gonna watch, and I did watch The House That Jack Built. Side note, I also tried watching Nymphomaniac, and I did get through some of that, and I did not end up getting through the whole movie though. So that's another Lars von Trier movie. You can only imagine what that is about. Okay, so anyway, but that's just, I thought I would just say that. But yeah, The House That Jack Built, though. So this is about a serial killer named Jack, who has OCD, and he takes us on a journey of his killing exploits while he traverses down to hell. So this would definitely attract any sort of like Lars von Trier fan, I guess, because this is one of his more recent movies. And anybody who wants to see some blood and some disturbing content, they might also be in for a ride as well. This movie is just showing us the morbid anxiety that a serial killer like Jack can have, especially since he has OCD. So some of the darkly comedic moments are like when, he has to keep cleaning after he kills somebody, because that affects his killings every so often. And really, at the end of the day, this is just a retelling of what Dante's Inferno is. Go look it up. I'm not a history podcast. With Jack playing Dante, and then Virgil, Verge, who is this kind of guy that he talks to throughout, being one of the angels from Wings of Desire. Yeah, like Virgil is the guy who's like taking Dante down to hell pretty much. I will say though, Matt Dillon, I think he does a good job as a murderer in this movie. And I also do love the inclusion of Rilo. I almost said Rilo Kiley, or the band with Jenny Lewis in it. I meant Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter, from The Lodge and Daisy Jones and stuff. But she's in this movie. I think she was great. So that's just my opinion. For dialogue and cinematography, I just said it's a Lars von Trier movie, and if you know, you know. Again, dialogue's nothing to write home about. Cinematography, also kind of the same, but it is what it is. I do wish this movie was shorter, though, in my opinion. I don't think it needs to be 2 hours. I get the idea, but I'm also just like, it was a little insufferable to watch at some points. I'm just like, oh, God, Jesus Lord. Not much of a soundtrack otherwise, though, in this movie. I do like the use of Hit the Road Jack at the end of the credits, but I didn't really care for any of the other soundtrack. There isn't really much of there. And directing is, again, it's a Lars von Trier movie. I really didn't have much to say about this, to be honest. You know what you're in for. If not, then buckle up. Again, this is not accessible in my opinion, and that's something saying something because fucking Melancholia is what the end of the world, but like whatever. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, exercise caution with this one. It's not as disturbing as one may want you to believe that it is, in my opinion, but for somebody who's trying to work through the filmography of Lars von Trier, it's kind of required at this point to watch, just because it's one of his more newer movies. Talking about a movie that I don't want to watch again, this was actually because if you listened to my episode that I did with the Horror Queers, not on the Hot Chick, but when I was on their show and I talked about All About Evil, Peaches Christ's movie, one of the things, because Noah Segan's in that movie, one of the things I was kind of suggested to watch was a movie called Dead Girl from 2008. And so thanks, Trace and Joe. But yeah, so this movie, it's about two high school outcasts. One is Shiloh Fernandez, who is in the Evil Dead remake, and then Noah Segan, who has been in other films, including All About Evil. But yeah, this is about two high school outcasts, like I said, who break into an abandoned mental health facility, an asylum, if you will, and they find a naked undead woman, they rape her, and that's pretty much what this movie is. I hated this. I gave it a 1. I did not really care for it. To be honest, I'm not really all that sure who the audience for this movie is. It's not really a rape revenge movie, because I can get into a rape revenge movie, but it's not even that good of an extreme horror movie. So I don't really know who the fuck this is for. I think this movie is trying to say something about how women are just treated by men in general in society, and trying to tackle the sort of relationship between two male friends and how that can kind of go south at some point. So I guess I appreciate that in a way, and just toxic masculinity and how it has something to do with that. But I don't think it's really all that successful in trying to do either of those things, in my opinion. I just didn't really care for it a whole lot. I think Shiloh Fernandez does a good job at trying to at least give his character a little something to go off of, and Noah Segan is a good villain in this, I will say. But I do think the character of Joanne, who is kind of the apple of Shiloh Fernandez's eye, but who is not his girlfriend or anything, I think she's underwritten, and it's a shame, because I think the actress was fine. Like, she's not a bad actress, but she's went on and done other things. But I think this was just it was just written not well. And Jenny Spain, who plays Dead Girl, is actually pretty good as well. And she would also, in a way, I mean, I don't know her, but like, she has also defended her portrayal of this as well. So I don't really think the script is all that good. It wasn't really all that well written, in my opinion, and the cinematographer or the cinematography in this is not really all that good, and the look of it is not that good either. Editing wasn't great. I know I'm just shitting on this movie. I'm sorry. Oh well. I liked the song at the end of the movie. I liked like what that ended on. There isn't really much else in terms of soundtrack in this movie. If anything, it, I guess, is maybe like a metal a little bit throughout, but that's really it. And I don't think the director did much of anything else. So really couldn't care that much about that. I think this movie thinks it's so edgy because it's dealing with the subject of like necrophilia. But I don't think it's a good movie to really watch all that much. And I think there's better movies out there that you can watch that are not horrible like this, and that maybe also do talk about toxic masculinity in a way that I think is done a little bit better. So that's what I watched, Dead Girl. So because I was watching all these disturbing ass things, I decided I needed to do something different. So I actually watched Teen Beach 2. That's the sequel to Teen Beach Movie. You know how I feel about Teen Beach Movie. I love that movie, actually. This is about when the characters of the movie musical West Side Story get stuck in the real world. Brady and Mac, from the first movie, they have to find a way to return home. I gave this a 2.5, honestly. I personally could have kept it. I do love Garrett Clayton in this movie. I just love him in general. He plays such a good little himbo in this movie, and I love that. But honestly, I could have kept it. I think Teen Beach Movie is just an overall better movie, in my opinion. And I think if you're going to watch it, just watch that one. You don't have to really worry about watching the sequel. That's my opinion. Because I then wanted to do more DCOMs, I decided to watch High School Musical after that. So I will say with High School Musical, if you don't know about this, it's like literally the biggest Disney Channel original movie ever, with Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens and Ashley Tisdale and all these people. A popular high school athlete named Troy Bolton, played by Zac Efron, and an academically gifted girl by Vanessa Ann Hudgens, gets roles in the school musical, and they develop a friendship after, fucking being in high school pretty much. It's a Kenny Ortega movie. I still side-eye him a little bit for the Rocky Horror Picture Show remake, but, he's gay, I think, and like that's cool, and he can dance his ass off. That's great. I will say in this movie, because I have mentioned this before, that Bart Johnson, who plays Troy's dad in this movie, is Robin Lively's husband in real life, Teen Witch. And I will say that there's a missed opportunity. I love the theater teacher in this, by the way. She's great and like so over the top. You could have had Robin Lively play that though. I'm just saying, but whatever. But I gave it a 3. I thought it was fine. It wasn't terrible. I also was trying to watch the sequel this month, and I didn't really get around. I mean, I watched it. I was watching it, but I did not finish it, if that makes sense. So I may have to start again. But anyway, so whatever, I'll do that. But a little bit of a different, because I actually got this from my my boss. Actually, we were talking about movies or whatever, because we do that sometimes, and he was talking about The Mist, and I was like, well, I haven't watched The Mist really, so I thought, why the hell not? So I watched The Mist from 2007. This is a movie. It is by Frank Darabont. This is a movie that, after a violent storm, a dense cloud of mist envelops a small Maine town, trapping a local artist, David Drayton, who is Thomas Jane, I believe, and his 5-year-old son in a local grocery store with some other people, including a crazy Marcia Gay Harden. And they soon discover that the mist conceals deadly horrors that threaten their lives, and worse, their sanity. But yeah, this movie is very maligned and very there's some people who fucking hate it, but I'm gonna say right now, I didn't really have much to I didn't do my little breakdown or whatever like I've been doing. But I gotta say, I really liked this movie. I gave it a 4 and a little heart. I think this is a Stephen King movie, of course, as well. But I thought even the CGI is kind of awful. I will say that much. However, I could care less, because I think everything else in the movie pretty much works, and I really like it. And it does have a twist ending, of course. But yeah, I really liked it, in my opinion. So go check out The Mist, if you want to. I would definitely recommend it. The next thing I watched was actually because of Rocco, and is because he actually likes this film, and we got onto the subject of Milo from Atlantis: The Lost Empire, so that's why I decided to watch, y'all. So this is a Disney movie. This is the world's most highly qualified crew of archaeologists and explorers are led by historian Milo Thatch, played by Michael J. Fox. As they board this submarine, and they head deep down into the mysteries of the sea, and they end up finding Atlantis, and they're trying to protect it and all this stuff. I'm not going to go too deep into it, because I didn't do all that really. I didn't do that work. But I will say I gave this a 3.5. I did generally like it. It was definitely during one of those times where you had Treasure Planet coming out. You also had Lilo and Stitch and other stuff coming out as well. And this was just kind of a little bit of a different thing. This was definitely Disney's foray into trying to do straight action adventure kind of thing. And I think they did a pretty decent job with it. I think Michael J. Fox does a really good job, and Cree Summer, who plays Kita in this movie. I think it was pretty good. I would love to do this on the show at some point, so I might be doing that. You be on the lookout, not this year, maybe another year or something. But I do want to do DCOMs. I want to do DCOMs and then maybe some Disney movies as well. And this might be on the docket for that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And it's going to be fun. The next thing I watched after that was, I actually watched, because it was on Hulu, I watched Dodgeball, a true underdog story. This is a Ben Stiller, I think, written movie or produced movie. It wasn't directed by him. But this is about a megalomaniac, White Goodman, played by Ben Stiller. He owns this high-end fitness center where he thinks he's better than you. They move across this place called Average Joe's, which is run by this guy Pete, who's Vince Vaughn, and pretty much for Vince Vaughn to keep his gym, he has to pretty much do a dodgeball tournament. And so he's doing this tournament, and then Ben Stiller's character ends up also entering the tournament, and it's a whole thing. This has like a really good cast, in my opinion. I mean, I don't really care that much about Vince Vaughn, to be honest, but Ben Stiller's kind of a fun guy. He's weird to watch, and I like his weird sometimes. Still have to watch Heavyweights. I'm gonna get to that, but anyway, but like Christine Taylor's in here, Justin Long, all different sorts of people, and fucking Vanessa Williams' brother is in here too. Crazy. But yeah, I liked it personally. I gave it a 3.5. Is it stupid? Yeah, kind of. I don't care though. Like, it's kind of great in my opinion. But yeah, that's just what I think about that. So yeah, go if you've never seen it, check out Dodgeball. I think it's a fun little time. You have to get over the fact that it was from 2004, but like, overall, I think it was a decent watch. The next thing I watched, because I'm going to watch it at some point. It's on Hulu right now. I was just in theaters, but I watched The Omen because the first Omen is now available on Hulu. So I thought, why not watch it? Or Hulu, as Dowd would say. But anyway, so this is about a diplomat, U.S. diplomat, Robert Thorne, played by Gregory Peck. He adopts, and by adopts, I mean he doesn't tell his wife that she had a miscarriage and like lost the baby, and whatever. He adopts Damien as a little baby, and he doesn't realize that his fucking son is the son of the devil. So this is obviously like a horror classic. This has Lee Remick in it, playing the wife. It has Gregory Peck, like I said. It has that's that guy's name? David Warner, that's his name. He's in there as well. It's a good little time. I kind of liked it. I gave it a 4 and a heart. It was kind of a bunch to watch, like I will say. Maybe I was only in the headspace for it a little bit, but like I generally did like it, and I think it's like a pretty decent little possession movie. It's kind of possession movie. It's like a demon movie. So I did like it, and I look forward to watching the first Omen as well. That'll be kind of fun as well. Then the next thing I watched is actually the next episode you're going to be hearing this week. I have to actually edit it, but I might not edit it a whole lot. I don't know, but we'll see. It was Stir of Echoes from 1999. So if you don't know or this is about a working class telephone lineman played by Kevin Bacon named Tom. He's thrust into a murder mystery after being put under hypnosis by his sister-in-law, played by Ileana Douglas, and he now has to find out what happened to a missing teenager before his family fully falls apart. So I talk all about it in my episode, but I think the movie is such a fresh take on the typical ghost story. I think this does a really good job at just being pretty entertaining throughout the whole time. It gets in and gets out pretty easily as well. And I also think one of the big themes of this film is talking about like your life having to mean something. And I think it's a fascinating exploration into just like the midlife crisis sort of thing that Tom is experiencing in this. I think all of the acting in here is pretty good as well. Kevin Bacon does a really good job in his role. Catherine Irby does a pretty good, she's a great scene partner to Kevin Bacon. And even the little kid Jake, who we already know that some child acting can be hit or miss, but I thought he did a really good job. And then everyone involved, I think, was really, really good as well. So the writing was also done pretty well too. This is from David Coep, who had written, Jurassic Park and other things like that. So he was a very well-known writer. There is like one or two moments of like exposition dump throughout this, but it's not the worst script at all. So I will let it, I'll let it rock if anything. And I did love the cinematography of this movie. I think there are some really good effects done in camera that just add to the creepy vibes of this movie. And I think the shots in this are just done very well. And it's a nice little movie to look at too. It's very atmospheric in my way. And I think the editing was also done pretty well, and it's fairly well paced. I think the one interesting song in here is a cover of Paint It Black by Gob that plays during a pivotal part of this movie. But overall, the sound design of this is pretty good. I didn't mind it at all. And I think David Coop does a pretty good job of directing this movie. He has such a prolific career as a writer. And so for him to have this be his second outing as director, it's cool to see him flex his horror muscle as well, because he obviously seems like such a fan of the genre as well, which is always the best thing to have. And I think for any fans of Kevin Bacon or of ghost stories in general, I do think this is worth a watch. And I gave it a little 4 and a little heart because I really liked it personally. I'm actually going to be recording this episode tomorrow for later on this month, but I watched House Arrest from 1996. So this movie is from this movie is about Grover Beindorf, who's played by Kyle Howard, and his younger sister Stacy decide that their parents, Janet and Ned, Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Pollak respectively, are acting childishly when they decide to divorce after 18 years of marriage. So they lock them in the basement until they sort out the problems. And in my opinion, I don't know what I kind of know what I'm going to say, I guess, but like, I gave this a 2.5 and, I didn't really care for it a whole lot. That's always kind of been my rating. I don't think it's like the most god awful movie in the world. However, I just don't really care for it as a like family film or like a kid film, I guess, which it's kind of supposed to be in a way. I just don't really care for it. And, I guess I'll let my thoughts be known on my episode about it. But yes, I will be covering that with my sister as well because she really likes this movie. So I thought, why the hell not? Back to the DCOMs, though. I did end up watching Lemonade Mouth from 2011. And I really liked this movie, actually. I thought it was great. This is pretty much kind of like if you take The Breakfast Club and then make them singers in a way. When 5 ragtag freshmen meet in detention, it seems like they have nothing in common, but through music, they form an unbreakable bond and discover that they have the makings of the greatest high school garage band in history, and they call themselves Lemonade Mouth. So you have Olivia, Stella, Wen, Mohini, or Mo, and then Charlie. They find that they can make a real difference when they learn to lean on each other and then let go of everything holding back their dreams. I didn't go too in depth with this or anything like that, but I really do think this has such a good DCOM. I love that you have some people like Christopher McDonald's, like the overbearing principal in this. Tisha Campbell is in here as well. And I think a lot of like Bridget Mendler is like Olivia in this. Haley Cuoco is Stella in here. I just thought it was like a really Naomi Scott is Mo. She's Jasmine in the live action Aladdin movie. But yeah, I just thought this is a really well done DCOM. The music is so good in this. Like, I think it might be even a little better than High School Musical sometimes, which is saying something. But because obviously this is like, you know, it is because of the popularity of High School Musical, something like this would happen. But I thought it was done pretty decently, being a DCOM and all. With a good old, the next thing I watched it because it was going off of Criterion Channel, so I thought I would watch it. And I decided to watch Bottle Rocket from 1996. This is a Wes Anderson movie. So this is about these two gentlemen. You have Anthony played by Luke Wilson, and then Dignan, who's played by Owen Wilson, who are obviously brothers in real life. Upon his release from a mental hospital, following a nervous breakdown, Anthony joins his friend Dignan, who seems far less sane than he is. And he has hatched this like harebrained scheme for an as yet unspecified crime spree that involves their like former boss, the legendary quote unquote Mr. Henry. This is a Wes Anderson movie. This is his first film because fun little fact, Wes Anderson, the very well-known director, literally went to school with the Wilsons, I think, and like was I think roommates with Owen Wilson, so that's why they're in here. But yeah, it was fine. I gave it a 3. To be honest with you, I have not watched many Wes Anderson movies, so I don't have much of an opinion on him. This was fine. I didn't hate it or anything, but I don't kind of see what the big deal is. But again, maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I would maybe watch some of his other movies as well. I just have to kind of check them out and see what I think about them, right? But there's that. then in this situation, the next thing I watched was because I will be covering it. I'm actually recording it tonight, but I will be recording an episode on Return of the Living Dead. I'm going to be covering that in a little bit, but I watched this. It was super fun. If you don't know what Return of the Living Dead is, it's from 1985. I gave this a 4.5 and a heart. I love this movie. It's my favorite zombie movie like ever. This is about a young man who is starting a new job, played by Tom Matthews, and his older coworker, who is James Karen. They accidentally set into motion a series of events that unleash some of the best zombies in the world. This is a must-watch for any like horror fan in general, if you're partial to zombies especially. And I really do think this is such a great like mix of both horror and comedy as well. I don't really know how like deep this movie gets, if at all. I think it's definitely commenting on like some environmental issues a little bit as well, but I don't really know like how deep we can get on this in terms of theming. But I do love just what it's going for and how like silly it is in a way, but how like spooky and scary it is, like honestly. All of the actors except for Brian Peck, because ew, but they're really committed to this material. It's a good time to watch. I really do like, and I think the story's done pretty well. It's pretty easy to follow. It's so 80s that it hurts, but in like the best way ever. And I think the outfits are really done in this very well. They're so of the period, and it's just really nice. The shots are really great to look at. I would definitely have like poster of like some of these shots in this, or I would frame them. Like, I just think they look really cool. The effects are really, really good. There was some drama about that you'll probably find out more about in my episode. But the effects I think were done pretty decently. The editing was done pretty well as well. I do love all of the like 80s punk throughout this, and just the soundtrack of it all. I mean, the soundtrack is so goddamn good. It's like up there with something like Valley Girl, in my opinion, where I just think it's really well done. And he may have been a handful as a director, and maybe he wasn't the greatest director in the world. I do think that Dan O'Bannon did a pretty decent job at directing this film, but maybe he wasn't like the guy to do it, but it is what it is. This movie to me is really one of a kind. I think it's such an important movie in horror. This is where the idea of zombie eating brain eating zombies comes from. So all the other zombie movies that came after it, whether intentionally or not, have something to or have been influenced by this movie, and I just love that. And I think it's just it's a great little horror movie. I really like it, and I'm glad to be covering it, so that'll be fun. Then I watched Alice Sweet Alice because it was on Canopy, and I've been meaning to watch it. This is from 1976, the film debut of one Miss Brooke Shields, even though, spoiler alert, she dies in it. But Alice is a withdrawn 12-year-old girl who lives with her mother and her younger sister Karen, played by Brooke Shields, who gets most of the attention from her mother, leaving Alice out of the spotlight. And when Karen is found brutally murdered in a church, suspicions begin to point towards Alice. But could a 12-year-old girl really be capable of such savagery? And so, like, this movie... there are some people who hate it, whatever. I gave it a 3.5 and a heart. This is like kind of like an American Giallo movie, which I kind of am into. And it's like a whole fucking time, man. So you kind of have to get into it. You have to be maybe in the headspace for it, or kind of be into the vibe. But like, I did generally like it for the most part. I kind of like the twists and turns that it takes, so I was down for it. So there's that. And then the next two I watched at the end of this month, I actually watched a movie called The Wait. And the reason I watched this actually was because I got a screener for it, or I got an email where there was a screener link, and I asked for it and they gave it to me. But this is from F. Javier Gutierrez. So this will actually be on VOD this month, I think. So if you want to check it out, go ahead. But it's about Eladio, who is a hunting estate keeper. He takes a bribe from a veteran hunter, and weeks later, his whole life falls apart pretty much. And what looked like the opportunity of a lifetime then turns into like a macabre descent into hell, where he finds out that his misfortune may not be entirely by chance. I feel like I needed to have a little bit more context of just what it's like for Spanish hunting clothing and stuff, perhaps, or what the Spanish countryside is like, perhaps. However, and the thing that this guy is well known for is doing a movie called Rings, which is kind of like a little bit of like a ring thing that is in that universe. Not really though. It's very maligned. It's not. Apparently it's not well done. But yeah, so this was fine though. There's some creepy imagery in here, and I did generally like my watch of it. Like I gave it a 3, and I thought it was fine. I didn't really have much else to say about it. And it's nice that I got a screener for it and I was able to get that. So I just watched it on Vimeo. So that's what I watched. But if you're at all interested in Spanish language horror movies, this is kind of a horror drama in a way. But if you're into it, pull up. Like, why not? And support international film. And then the next one, everyone can watch because it's on YouTube. It's kind of been making its rounds a little bit, but it's called Milk and Cereal from 2004. This is from Curry Barker. This is about a prank channel on YouTube. A surprise birthday prank takes a turn for the worst when a popular social media duo must face the realities of the terrifying aftermath. And that is bearing the lead for that, because this movie I thought was really, really well done. It's 60 minutes, so it's kind of like Host in that way. It's on Shudder, but not really at all. This is fucking weird as hell, and I really liked it. I gave it a 4 and a heart. I would watch it again in a minute. If you want to know what it's kind of like, if you've ever seen the movie Creep, kind of think of it that way. But it was fucking awesome. And everyone can watch it because it's on YouTube. So you may have to watch, you're going to have to see ads with it, of course, obviously. But overall, I thought it was like very well done, in my opinion. And Curry Barker, do other shit, please. Like, oh my God, do horror things. Like, I think you'd be, like, please, like, I think Sinister Cinema Reviews, over on his channel, they already talked about this. Him and his girlfriend have already talked about this and how fantastic it was. But goddamn, I want this guy to do more stuff. Like, I thought it was very well done. And yeah, like, it's like, please do a VHS segment. Like, oh my God. Like, anyway, but yeah. But that's what I watched in the month of August. I didn't really watch much TV, I don't think. As you may already know, I'm doing the Sabrina the Teenage Witch rewatch podcast. I haven't really been watching episodes a ton because I've already recorded some. So, but I'll get back on that train as well. But, you've been doing that a little bit. Haven't really been watching a ton of other TV though, that I can think of, but yeah, but that's what I've been watching in the month of August. And so this September, I don't know what the hell I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching stuff for October, obviously. So be on the lookout for, at the end of September, what I watched in September, and you'll probably be seeing horror movies because that's what I'm, doing. I've got some records coming up too, so that'll be for some future episodes as well. But with all that being said though, let me know what you've watched this month, or let me know what you're planning to watch, or maybe things that I should watch, or like any of that kind of stuff. I'm down to hear all of it. So thank you so much for listening today. Please make sure you follow on social media, on Instagram and Twitter and Letterboxd. All the stuff is in the show notes. Give me 5 stars, 1 to 2 sentence review, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.